It says we're live. Here we are, everybody. Make sure all the buttons are checked and everything's good. Yes, CrimeCast. I'm sitting here with David Roddy. How you doing, buddy?
Good, sir. How are you?
I am good. Let me go over here and make sure. Yeah, where everything's recording. So far, so good. Technology is not always my friend. It's a
Spelled with 3 L's.
It's still. Oh, well done. She's already on camera.
There we go.
Our special guest today, Kayla Balinger. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, and I think I spelled it right. She sent me. So, does it get confused a lot of times? Do people put like a lot of different L's in your name?
Yes, it's spelled all the time with 2, and there's only 1.
And that's a pet peeve.
Well, yeah, because I married into it, so I'm especially like, no, that's not how it's spelled.
I want to get it right.
If I had to go through all of that to legally change my name,
aggravating that is.
I had to legally change it, which is a pain. So if I had to go through all of this, you better spell it right.
I told her I responded when she sent that back. I'm going to spell it Kayla with a C, Ballinger with like 9 L's on the thing, but I did not do that. All right, so I've known you for a little while, but you are, and I want to make sure I get the title right and the rank right, detective for the Special Victims Unit. You also are a Homeland Security Investigative Task Force officer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We're going to kind of start from this, and David's got a lot of good questions. I'm just going to start with a very basic thing to get this conversation started. What got you into law enforcement to begin with?
To begin with, both of my grandfathers were military veterans. One was in World War II as a POW. The other one served during the Vietnam era. And they both just had an incredible drive to serve other people. And I grew up very close to both of them. And the grandfather that served during the Vietnam era, he was in law enforcement, and we were extremely close growing up. He just passed away about 1.5 years ago. And he spent 34 years in law enforcement. He hated carrying a gun, so he actually elected to do animal control instead of regular police work.
Oh, really?
Yes. He was very good at his job. He had a great reputation up in Massachusetts. Everybody called him for help with any animal crisis they had. He was there. So,
Is that where you're from?
I'm from Massachusetts.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep, originally. I grew up on Cape Cod. It's a cool place. I wasn't rich, but it was nice to have the ocean nearby.
What got you to Chattanooga? What brought you here?
My ex got transferred down here, yeah. And then I always wanted to go into law enforcement since I grew up around so many officers. It just was kind of in my blood. I did EMT work for 3 years because you can't be a police officer till you're 21, and I wanted to serve the community somehow, so I became an EMT. Did that for 3 years, and going out on scenes, I was always looking over and be like, I want to do what those guys are doing. I just got to wait a few more years. So after I moved down here, I applied at CPD. And
what year did you go through the CPD stuff, the training?
2016.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
About to hit 10 years in July.
Man, it's 20. Every time somebody says 2016, I'm like,
that was yesterday. Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. It's 10 years. It's 10 years ago. That's what I saw something the other day that said, don't tell half of us that I still think the 80s is 20 years ago. If I go the 80s, well, it's 20 years ago. No, it wasn't. It was not 20 years ago. It was. And for me and you, it may be. For her, it's not.
I was born in 91, so.
Then you agree with us about that.
Hey, everybody,
You have no frame of reference.
This thing's over. Right. It was great having her on. I'll escort her the hell out of here with her green apples now and everything. She brings in green apples. She's teaching us some stuff today. She's brought in some snacks.
That's right.
She's bringing green apples to help. I've got a bag of them right here. Did you say you're letting me have these?
Yes, you can have them.
My guess will
absolutely
green apples. There's a voice technique I will share with them when they come in.
Anybody that manufactures and grows green apples, we're always looking for sponsors.
Free green apples to everybody, just for everybody. All right, so you get into you go through the training, you become a police officer. Was it what you expected at first? And the reason I'm kind of moving through the timeline fast is we're going to get to a case that you worked on, and we're going to spend most of our time there. But was it what you expected? Was there some stories you remember when you first got on, like awakening moments of like, oh, this is real, I'm here?
It definitely was not what I expected because, again, I grew up around old, salty officers that did things very differently back when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are guys that were officers in the 70s and 80s that we don't do things the same way anymore. So some of it, in my opinion, was a lot better. We had more technology, better ways of connecting cases together, keeping crime statistics, stuff like that is way different than it used to be. There's a lot more communication between units and other departments as well. It was definitely different than what I thought it was going to be, but it was a good different. I was very okay with that.
Let me ask this quick question before we move into the case, and this is a question for both of you. Me and you have talked, Roddy, about technology and how it's helped investigative procedures in the last 30 years. I also wonder, though, if it actually sometimes makes it more difficult, because it also can be such a distraction. It creates so many more rabbit holes you can waste time on, or it seems like there's so many alternatives out there, so many different ways to find info. It's almost like information overload. I wonder if it ever becomes a detriment because of all the technology.
For me, probably one of the more glaring possible detriments is an over-reliance on leads that are generated through technology versus leads which are generated through human intelligence or human. So, and I've told this story before, probably one of the most glaring examples I ever had in my career on the importance of knowing just people in the area you police or the city as a whole or whatever that looks like. I won't bore you with the details, but somebody was one of the ones where I got hit by a car of the 4 and went to try to track down the driver of the car. And I got hooked up with Spooky Jackson, who was a legend in the police department, but he knew everyone. He was a cop in the 70s and 80s, grew up and cut his teeth in that generation of law enforcement. And over the course of like 2.5 hours, I'd run the registration because I managed to find the car. Well, the car didn't come back, and I'm on the radio. Spooky hears who the car comes back to and finds me and says, "Hey, I know who owns that car. Come with me." I'm like, I got a sergeant, veteran police officer telling me as a district officer, follow him. So I go following Spooky over to this house. He goes up, knocks on the door, talks to a woman at the door, comes back and says, "Yeah, that's her husband's car. He lent it to so-and-so. We're going over here. Follow me." Okay. So we went on an Easter egg hunt for like an hour, and it was just to the next one. And they gave the car to so-and-so. Well, he doesn't have it. He gave it to his girlfriend. And it just led and led and led and led. And finally he goes, "I know where the kid's at. Follow me." So we went back over into Boone Heights and went up, knocked on the door. Kid's asleep upstairs in the bed. And it literally was just because Spooky knew, and then Spooky knew, and then he knew. Yeah. And it taught me there's no way we would have ever found any of that through any type of source intelligence. That material is just not found. And it wasn't back then. And I don't think it would have been found to the granular level that he knew it.
Right.
So that was one of the most impressionable moments of text good, text fast, text deconflicts, and it gets me to know things that are captured, but it's not the only thing, and it should never replace the understood importance of just getting to know people where you police.
Well, and this will come to you, Caleb, too. It's not also just, am I connected? It's the relationship point, right?
Yes.
Facebook friends or seeing people or knowing people or somehow having this technological connection via socials is not the same as having a relationship with them. And we're going to get into a little bit of that on Facebook. One of the questions I was going to ask you is how much technology helps you. If you want to address a little bit now, you can, or we can just jump straight into the case. But I would imagine technology is used quite a bit with what you do.
Technology for investigations.
Especially socials, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Technology for investigations for SVU is very important. A lot of the cases that we get happen over social media. Dating apps, Facebook, WhatsApp, Cash App, Snapchat, Instagram, the amount of preservation requests and search warrants we have to do on social media is
more
huge.
Notes coming.
Yeah.
Questions, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. But like Roddy said, it's the human technology versus the actual like IT technology. The information that we get off of like our internet records and stuff and police reports, that information is taken solely from what officers have written and actually reported. And so if there's information out there that has never been put down in the system on paper, we aren't going to know about it if we look it up. And so we rely on how much information an officer puts in a report sometimes. And it's incredibly important when training new officers to relay that. You put as much information as you can in your police report, because you never know 2 or 3 years down the road, even 10 years down the road, when that information, little bit of information that you put in that report could become important later on.
It doesn't seem as important now, but later on that could be the thing that cracks something open.
Yeah, absolutely.
What pulled you into the special victims unit? What pulled you in that path?
some personal experiences I had as a kid, some ACEs that I had as a kid, adverse childhood experiences, made me passionate about it. And once I kind of realized that's more what I wanted to get into, I purposefully put myself on calls on patrol, like child abuse calls, sexual assault calls, to try to get experience in how those things are handled, and shadow some of the investigators as well to get that experience.
What's the process on that though? When you start, you say you started intentionally putting yourself in that path,
Sure.
But then there's also the time the path itself goes, okay, come on over. This is what you're doing.
Yeah. So when we post for investigator or detective spots, it's like a job application process. The job opening is posted and then you apply for it, and you have to send in a resume, supervisor reviews, and then you go through like a panel interview where you're scored based off of the answers that you give. Then they total up your score, and usually multiple people will apply for it. And they rate you, and wherever you land on the list is where you'll end up. So they'll call you and offer the position to you. If something doesn't work out with childcare and you can't take the job, then they'll go down to number 2 on the list and offer it to them.
How long have you been in that particular unit now at this point in time?
I started in September of 2020, so it'll be 5.5, almost 6 years. Right.
I don't want to say, do you like your job? Are you glad you went this direction?
Oh, I definitely am. And it's funny because I actually was also interested in homicide. I shadowed a couple of those investigators as well. But sometimes there really is a calling, and I felt myself more pulled towards SVU instead.
All right, personal question.
Sure.
This great thing about podcasts, we can edit this out. When you went this direction, were you married at the time? Well, the reason I'm asking is because this path you're taking is going. One of the questions I'm going to ask you at the end of this is how you handle things mentally.
Sure.
I've asked him this a bunch. We're not answering it now, but I'm also assuming that if you're in a relationship, new or old, this is you're asking them to carry a little bit of this weight too. It's going to affect them a little bit, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, sorry.
So, I don't mind talking about this.
Try to use a lot of words.
I got offered the position a month before Matt and I got married.
Oh.
And so I had to tell my supervisor at the time, like, hey, I have like 3 weeks of vacation coming up next month. I know, like, I'm very glad to take the position, but my P time's already been approved. We're getting married in a month. So I started a little bit of training before I left, and then I kind of had to finish it when I came back.
Well, and I've learned this from David and all the guests we've had in here. I think it's true no matter what you're doing, whether it's fire, EMT, military. It's true in life, period. But especially when you're doing something like this, the person you go home to, them understanding is a big. They got to learn when you need time, when you don't need time, how you're going to decompress and all that too. So that's kind of why I was asking that.
I've had that conversation with a lot of people because I know the divorce rate for people in law enforcement, first responders in general, is actually, it's pretty bad. But I've explained to people that I think my spouse also being in law enforcement, doing what he does, has kind of helped us almost in our marriage rather than hurt us, because we both have that understanding of that call to serve. And so I know, like, if an anniversary gets messed up or a birthday or something,
it's not a
he understands
thing.
And I understand. And he spent 10 years on SWAT. I can't tell you how many times he got called out, and we had to stop what we were doing, take 2 different cars to everything, because we knew, hey, if I get called out, I'm going to have to go. Absolutely. So
we'll meet there for the anniversary dinner. I'm like, what the hell are we meeting there for? It's because I'm going to have to get called out to do some crazy stuff now.
Baby, I got to leave.
Yes.
But your mom's coming to get you.
Yes. Most people are like, oh, you guys have like a double chance of, getting a divorce. And really, I think it's the opposite. I think we have a better understanding of each other's job. And I love watching like true crime stuff. He hates it. He won't watch it with me because it's work. And like, we can talk about his work at home. We cannot talk about my work at home.
We're going to get to that.
He will not.
I want to get into that, but I want to kind of set it up with what we do first. And we'll kind of move into the case, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because eventually I want to finish it up with the mental component of this too. Sure. And I'm going to write that down. We can't talk about what she does. All right. So the case that we're going to talk about today, I was going to give you the framework of kind of setting it up, if you don't mind, what year it was and what was the case about. And then we're just going to have a conversation back and forth, questions and answer stuff.
Absolutely. So in May, I think it was around May of 2021, I got a few police reports from CPS. Child Protective Services actually called in to file that they had received referrals about inappropriate behavior going on at a unaccompanied minor facility here in Chattanooga. So one came in and I said, uh-oh, this is kind of crazy. And I was pretty new at that point. I'd only been on as a detective about 6-7 months.
Again, this is during COVID.
Yes.
Right? It was during COVID.
And then we got a second one, and then we got a third one.
What's the time period between the three? Do you remember? Was it a couple within the same week?
Within a week.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so I had to tell my supervisor, hey, this is super serious. And then we didn't really know what the facility was at the time. And then I had to go out there, obviously, to try to find these kids, and none of them were there anymore. So I said, well, this is a problem. I have to find a way to interview these minor victims and the witnesses to the supposed acts that had happened inside the facility.
Can I, real quick, I want to kind of paint that picture a little bit, simply because if we don't remember what's going on in 2020, there's COVID, and this is an unaccompanied immigrant camp, right? People that have been flown into the United States. I'm trying to figure out. This is not a political. We don't do politics here.
Strictly minors.
Strictly minors.
Yes,
okay, did not know
minors.
that. Okay, and they were using the old Tennessee Temple buildings as a housing facility.
Yes.
To wait till they go somewhere else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It was called Casa de Sidney. It was run by, I believe, the Baptiste Group.
Okay.
Is what they were called. They were a government contract.
So you get calls or tips. I don't know how those come in, but you get notifications that this has happened.
Yes.
The minors are no longer there. They've been moved to wherever they're supposed to go to next.
Wherever they're supposed to go to, whether that be a sponsor, family member here in the United States, or another facility. And when we realized how big of a deal this was going to be, we got in touch with our federal partners over at HSI, who offered tremendous support and help for us to actually work this case.
Let me add a layer of complexity to this for our listeners.
Sure.
You speak Spanish fluently?
My mother does, but I do not.
So how'd you work through that?
We had to track down. HSI actually has a full-time Spanish-speaking forensic interviewer. And when we have children interviewed who are either witnesses to crimes or victims themselves, we prefer the interviews be done by the Child Advocacy Center because they have forensic interviewers.
Were they present for so you were talking about going down to the location itself, and you said, I've got to find these children, but you don't speak Spanish.
Do not.
Presumptively, how well was their English?
Some of them could speak a little bit of English after we found that out, and some of them couldn't.
Did you ever document any intentional misleading statements made to try to use that language barrier as a barrier to you being able to do your job?
I don't think so, because the counselors at the Baptiste Group, who were the ones that put they were bilingual, and so they were able to kind of translate for us what was being said.
Okay. I was just with the fact that it was an internal problem, I was just curious if anybody, you would ask, is Johnny here? And they're looking at Johnny in the corner and they're like, no. Is your name Johnny?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I mean, because that can turn, and you don't know that. I mean, I had it in patrol. I won't share the stories, but there were so many times you would respond to a call, and I don't speak Spanish.
Yes.
And we found out later through the line, and we get people on the phone and be like, hey, we asked the guy who hit him in the face, and he was like, well, the guy that you were having translate for him a minute ago is the actual suspect, hit him in the head. That's a real thing. Happened on a call. Me and Cornbread were there.
Okay.
And we looked at each other, we're like, what? And he was like, yeah, the guy that you've been using to translate the call for you is actually the suspect.
So he's just telling you what
this
you
was
want
so
to hear.
bad. Yeah, exactly. Because he knew he wanted to get out of being arrested. Yeah. And that's why I was curious if you ever encountered anybody later on, like in the forensic interviews, and they were like, well, we thought this was here and this was there, but they told us this. And you could really
Lost in
tell
translation,
that,
basically.
or intentionally misled in translation was more the concerning part for me. I was just curious if you ever encountered that or discovered that.
Luckily we didn't have to encounter purposefully misleading because we had one HSI agent was Spanish speaking, and then HHS actually also got involved because they had to be notified.
Okay.
Do me a quick favor. The acronyms. Can you tell people what they are for lay people who don't HHI, HH, so we know all
So HSI is Homeland Security Investigations, and then HHS is the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right.
So they had their own investigators because there was a facility housing, unaccompanied minors. They had to be notified, and because this was kind of their area that they manage. And so we had 2 agents from HHS that also got involved in the investigation. And so it was myself and HSI and HHS all traveling around together. Once we found out where these children actually were, we went all around the country to interview them.
Well, I'm going to ask you where these took you, like what parts of the country, but also I've asked you this. We've had Austin Garrett in here and other people. Who's the lead on these things? I mean, you got 4, and I'm not saying that everybody's the ego man. You've got a job to do, right?
Sure.
But you also got a job to do.
Yes.
And so when you walk up to the door or you're in the car talking, is it like, you're better at this, you're leading, I'm a lead on this, or no, they have jurisdiction? I don't know how any of that works.
So we were kind of in the process of starting our TFO, our task force officer packets with HSI. I think this case definitely helped get us to that point of making that official with them. But I do have to give HSI credit when they have another officer bring them something or a TFO come to them, they allow that officer to be the lead investigator. And so they moved a lot at my direction. And I had agents that worked with me, but primarily it was my case, and they allowed it to stay that way.
I would imagine they appreciate the fact if they don't, it can be very convoluted and just slow the process down and distract a lot of times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They were very supportive.
So how many people total? How many investigators? You said 3 or 4 at least?
Oh gosh. Yep. It was myself and 1, 2, 3. I would say 4 to 5 HSI agents. And then for totality for the case, there was about 3 HHS agents involved too.
How many people are traveling around the country at one time, and where did it take you?
I had to travel 3 separate weeks. So I went out for a week, came home for the weekend, went out for a week, came home for the weekend, went out for a week. The first week, it was myself, another agent, and the forensic interviewer who had to travel with us, and then 2 HHS agents. And we went to New York. We were actually in the Queens area for the first week. HSI, New York, and NYPD assisted us in locating exactly where our first victim we needed to interview was at. And we had to roll up at like 4:30 in the morning in unmarked vehicles. Basically, with his parents' permission, went and snatched this kid because he lived in a dangerous area, and stick him in the car and take him to the Child Advocacy Center to have him interviewed.
Okay, so hold on a second, and I write stuff down while we talk, which is not always the great way to pay attention.
It's okay.
So you have to get the parents. So the child had parents.
Yes.
He was an unaccompanied
At first.
at
Yes.
first. Okay.
Yep.
So the parent gives you permission, but the child still wasn't with the parents at this time then, right?
No, it was either for all of the kids that we had to have interviewed, it was either their sponsor family had to give permission, the facility that they were at, or the parent if they had been reunited with their parents.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was very successful. That trip was great. We got a lot of good information. We also had a witness child that we had to interview, I believe, in Newark, New Jersey. And so because we were close, we just stayed in New York that week.
Interviewing, when you say child, let's define some terms here, because I've mentioned this to you before. When I think of trafficking or these type of cases, and Roddy alluded to, it's not the pull up in a van and grab people, and it's not always the 8-year-old and the 30-year-old pervert. All that stuff is evil, and that stuff exists.
Yes.
But it's a wide range of. There's a lot of grooming. There's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with that's way deeper than the stereotype.
Yes.
So when you say children, were you talking teenagers at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. They were teenagers.
Can you give me real quick the age of the perpetrators and the age of the victims, or can we not do that here?
It's on a news article.
I was making sure.
It's public, so I believe, I know for sure one was 35, and then the other two were in their mid to lower 20s. And then the kids at the facility ranged anywhere from, I think, 12 to 17. And then the day they turned 18, they aged out and had to leave.
Do you still investigate it at that point, even if they age out, because it happened as a teenager or as a child?
We can. Yes.
Okay, I didn't know how that worked.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so you're out interviewing.
Yes.
You did the first interview. Where did the second interview take you?
We went to, I'm trying to remember what week that was. I actually have it. I went to Salt Lake City, and I also went to West Palm Beach, which were both great. And then, the other one was in Houston, Texas.
So so you had to go to 4 different places.
Yes.
4. Okay, so for witnesses and 4. Okay,
that's correct. By the time we got all the information from the kids in New York, Utah, and West Palm Beach, I was able to actually secure warrants for one of my suspects and found out that she had fled to Houston, Texas. And there was one more kid we needed to interview in Texas, in the Houston area. So we killed 2 birds with one stone at that time. The DA's office here made her warrants extraditable across all 50 states. And so at the same time we interviewed one kid at the CAC there, we actually went with the sheriff's office and HSI and HHS in Texas and surrounded her house, and I was able to actually put handcuffs.
I was
going
to ask that.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was the guy from the fire department I talked about. There was a guy, when he first became, I cannot remember, maybe his name was Andrew. He was the fire investigator. I'm going to mess it up. I apologize. But he was after this guy that he knew had committed the arson and knew it had been a murder involved. And he said, man, when I got to put the handcuffs on that guy, because it was a long process, he goes, I wanted to be the one to put the handcuffs on him. I'm not saying it's to that degree, but you got to be the one to put the handcuffs on her.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that felt like you'd at least started the process of making some accomplishment.
Yes, not many people get to do that, especially when you just work for, a local city PD. So that was a very unique experience that I got to take a hand in, which was cool.
After what's the timeline? Help me again with the timeline. So the tips come in, you take it to your superiors. Hey, this is an issue. You start the investigation. How far away are we from getting the tips to now you're putting handcuffs on this one person and you've done your 3 or 4 city interviews? How long of a timeline is that? So
we got the first tip in May. I headed out in July, and I believe we had handcuffs on her in July.
That's pretty fast. I mean, in my brain, I'm thinking this is months and months and months, but it's not that.
Yep.
Is that how fast most investigations go in your world?
Not typically. A lot of ours, especially in SVU, have to go through grand jury, and that can take a while.
Is there anything else you want to talk about the investigation? I mean, we'll come back to interrogations and all of this stuff. But one of the things that I saw on a couple of the clips that I watched, and no ill intent on what I'm about to say, I just it led to the question. I saw someone being interviewed, and he said at the time he had never seen something like this. He was referring to the first tip that came in, the first allegation. He said, I've just never seen anything like this from a place like this. So I think this is the exception, not the rule, which I'm not disagreeing with. I'm not in that world. But then two other allegations came in, and I think they all ended up to be true. Is this type of facility just like fertile ground for this? Because anytime there's a power structure, anytime there's an age difference, anytime you get the wrong people in the wrong space, I think it's fertile ground. We've seen it in colleges and schools and churches, but this is not those. This is a different place. Is it fertile ground for this type of stuff in your mind? Have you found more of this? Or
I haven't seen a whole lot more of it. I would say the reason it was fertile ground is because you had such a mass volume of unaccompanied minors who, for the most part, all spoke Spanish, except you have hundreds of different dialects of Spanish. And so you may have somebody from Guatemala that speaks Spanish, but their dialect is like, 27 mountain ranges deep, and it's very hard to understand them. So I think maybe it could be happening, and it's being underreported as well.
So from a suspectology, and Clint and I talked about this before we got started, was there a clearly identifiable genesis for having 3 separate suspects in the same? Now, I understand you have one suspect that has the proclivity or the propensity, and they victimized 2, 3, 4, 5, however many victims.
Mm-hmm.
These were separate suspects that all had the same methodology towards what they were doing.
Yes.
Did you, and I'm going to give you some scenarios that painted in my head, was it one was doing it, another one became aware, and then they were like, hey, and it kind of cascaded? Or was it 3 entirely separate, nowhere connected, and all of a sudden at the end of it, they're like, oh, you were doing it too? Kind of realization, or how did that ever really plug into where it does seem somewhat atypical to not have one that does many versus many doing the same of one?
Yeah.
So two of my 3 main suspects were connected, and they were aware of what each other was doing, and I was able to recover that. And they were both charged with coercion and tampering because they were texting each other, make sure you delete all your messages. One of them actually covered a shift at the facility for another one so she could travel across state lines to go meet her minor down near the Mobile, Alabama area.
Charged as an accessory?
No, we were not able to do that.
Sorry to ask.
It's
Sorry to
okay,
ask a
it's
question
okay.
that's got a lot behind it.
Yeah.
Look in your book and see
Looking at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, we just hit a good spot in the podcast
She looks over
that she's not going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I
You go take a
understand.
bite of her apple.
I understand that.
Yes.
This is the biggest apple I'm going to eat in my entire life.
Yeah.
Well,
So, now they were charged with tampering with evidence, coercion.
Right, I saw that.
Yes, and my one main suspect, she pled guilty in a federal court to an obstruction charge, and she was just, I think, last year sentenced to, I think it was 30 months probation and 8 months of house arrest, I believe.
Mm. Well, one of the questions I was going to ask
Mm-hmm.
was, again, please correct me. This is your world. I'm making assumptions, which is really good because that means it can just. He's used to it. You're new
So
at
sorry.
this.
Assuming
I'm so
okay.
sorry.
Well, so one of the things that I think I know what happens in cults a lot is the perpetrator tries to isolate the victim. They try to build a little moat of emotion around the victim. In cultures, I mean, in cults, a lot of times they try to isolate you from your parents and your friends, right?
That's true.
And so I'm wondering, because these unaccompanied minors kind of already had a
They're already
built-in
isolated.
moat.
Yeah.
To your point, that's when it came up. I don't speak the language, even though I kind of speak the language. I'm in a country I've never been in. I have no idea what's going on in the culture.
Mhm.
I'm being shipped from one place to the next. And all of a sudden, she's really nice. And all of a sudden, someone cares about me. And I haven't maybe had someone actually care about me since I left my home.
Yes.
And it's almost like a lot of the work's done for the groomer.
Well, and she would actually one of them would get upset if another worker paid the victim any attention.
What was the filter like for hiring at this place?
I don't know. She was also pregnant with her husband's kid when all of this was going on. Yeah.
They shut this down after this, did they not? This
Yes.
facility?
Mhm.
Is it because of this? I'm assuming
100%.
100, as it should have been.
Yep.
Did anybody in this, again, you said you don't know. I'm assuming you still don't. The answer's not changed in 30 seconds. But there was no question of the people in charge, like, how are you getting these people to volunteer hire? There's no scrutiny on who's going to run in this place?
I don't know what the process was. I just know it was pretty much they needed to do a bilingual test in order to hire people, but I don't think it was
Much more
very
than that.
extensive. I know they, got a background check.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Did they incur any actual liability in this?
I don't know. I know the director at the Chattanooga location, after the facility got shut down by CPS because of my arrest, called me many times and was like, hey, are you going to close your case so we can open back up? And I said, no, it's not closed. It's still open. He's like, we just really need to get back up and running. And I said, I can't speed up my case.
Should have
because
thought
we
about
want
that
to
before.
reopen.
Well,
Yes.
so that's what
Wow.
that's what on the liability standpoint, any institution facility I've ever been around that has minors included in its occupants, There's very strict policies relative to where staff sits,
Yes.
how restrooms are used, unaccompanied, no same-sex opposite-sex observations.
Yes.
All the things are part of the protocols, and those are checked monthly. They're signed off on. All those things exist from just a general liability standpoint, and it sounds like those are completely non-existent within this facility, or
I think
they were never focused on.
Yeah, I think they had them, but I think the employees knew how to get around that also.
Okay.
Or were the minor they were interested in or in a quote unquote relationship with, they knew where the cameras were at. They knew how to kind of get out of sight from them. So they kind of knew how to work the system to
So there was behavior to get around protocols versus no protocols at
Yes.
all. Okay.
When you started doing investigations or backgrounds on the perpetrators, had they had history of this in the past? Had you noticed any? I mean, in other words, let me try to think how to do this correctly. The domino. I start doing a research, background check on her because of this allegation.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm going, she's also volunteered at these other two places. I wonder if she's also been, or was it really, this was a one time and done? It's hard for me to believe that kind of stuff, but that's me.
Very strangely, really did not have anything.
Really?
Yes. In the history of any of
All
these
of them, all three of them?
All three of them.
Wow.
In any of their interviews, did they ever give any indications of such a behavioral switch? I mean, you're talking about one who's 34, married and pregnant.
She was.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? The 17-year-old looks attractive and I think I'm going to start a future with them. That's a pretty good shift from a pattern of behavior. And then you had 3 suspects to actually cross interview and deconflict statements and all those things. Was there ever any, from you all just looking at it at 30,000 feet when you had the opportunity of, how did all of a sudden so many people's behaviors change, but they all changed in a parallel direction? Does that make sense?
It does. I think when you have very, very emotional, vulnerable, hormonal teenagers stuck in a facility with these women who work there because they want to help kids, and it just got to the point where it was crossing a line. They were forming relationships with some of these teenage boys, and the teenage boys from a cultural perspective really didn't see anything wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a challenge in itself.
So has there been any follow-up with the victims relative to the impact? I mean, you mentioned ACEs a moment ago. I mean, we've talked about things as subtle in toxic stress and trauma in a child's life, or neglect and hunger and lack of sleep. I mean, things that seem very minor but have great impacts. This is it has major impacts from a singular event, much less multiple.
Yes.
What's the follow-up look like been with the victims that you can speak to?
HSI and SVU are both very victim-centered, and so we had a victim witness coordinator that was also working with us with these kids to offer services like free counseling. So every child that we interacted with was offered some kind of free counseling services to follow up on. Now, whether they did that or not, we're not sure, but it was 100% offered.
Okay.
I've got a couple of questions. First of all, were other people involved or around this, like from the third party company that ran the facility, or anyone else? Were there shock and a lot of, we want to help you in any way? Did you get any initial pushback? Like, hey, in other words, were they try to stonewall you at certain places? And second question, as you're interviewing the perpetrators, was there ever remorse? Was there ever a light bulb moment where one of them went, oh my God, I've done wrong? Or was it a whole time of, I don't see anything wrong with it?
So for the first part of your question, I think initially, before they realized how big of a deal it was, the facility was they were given a little bit of a pushback because I don't think they realized what necessarily proper processes were in Tennessee for mandatory reporting and stuff like that. But eventually they cooperated. We were allowed to go down there and tour the facility. They wanted to get the facility open back up. So you kind of have to cooperate at that point.
Right.
And then, yes.
Remorse.
So one suspect that we got, she was down in Dalton, so luckily we didn't have to go far to get her. We got like a full confession out of her, and she was at the time remorseful. Especially, I was confronting her with her own messages on Facebook that I got a search warrant for and read, where she knew what she was doing is wrong, but we got the quote unquote, I loved him anyways. Especially when one of the victims was actually younger than her own children that she was in a relationship with. So she was a little bit, because of her own kids, a little bit remorseful, but at the same time, through a lot of the court process, once the victim turned 18, she was asking if they can move in together.
That brings my next question,
yes,
if I may jump in.
Mm-hmm.
So using Clint's traditional scenario of the 30-year-old suspect, 9-year-old victim, I don't think it's any secret. We all understand the potential for recidivism within suspects that have that typical profile, if you will.
Yes.
What's the recidivism potential for this kind of profile? Because they don't marry. I mean, the two profiles don't marry. I don't know whether the suspect and the victim ever will, but based on what you were just describing, I didn't want to confuse my question.
Yeah.
Has that become a conversation? Because what you're laying out, I would say Chattanooga is not the only city that experienced it, and it's not the only one that has these things. And the very close in age, minor male victim, things like that, but teenage years, ages up to 18, sometimes in the middle of prosecution, that's not an unknown dynamic within law enforcement. I mean, we all kind of experienced it, ever worked the job or those kind of things. But I don't know that I ever heard any real projections or studies relative to, one, the propensity for recidivism from the suspect. If that victim is removed from their life entirely, do they then go looking potentially to some type of statistically significant amount for another victim that matches similar circumstances or age? Or is it, as you put it, well, that was just love in the moment? I'm just curious, has there ever been a conversation about that, or do you all ever find anything about that?
I've thought about it, hoping that I would never see their names come across my desk again. I would say,
I don't think they're coming anywhere around you.
Yes. I would say, I think, a lot of times females and males are different in their response even to discipline. So she was all three of them were very scared when I got involved. And a lot of times on the flip side, when I see cases with older men with younger girls or teenagers, I don't really get that.
Fair. Okay, that's an excellent point.
So I think the recidivism with the genders reversed is a lot higher.
Well, you also mentioned how much that they expressed that the actual environment of the facility was part of the factor in the entire dynamic that ended up occurring and then being investigated.
Yes.
So as long as there's, and I hate to say this, but if they're never placed in a similar environment such as that, I mean, I hate to, you have for lack of a better term, a captive audience.
And you have these boys who have been separated from their parents for months on end, who want that motherly attention and instinct. They're lonely,
and you combine that with the cultural aspect,
high matriarchal presence,
and then being basically locked in this facility with these 20-year-old women who are caring for them. It's literally a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but when I say locked in the facility, I mean, you had they had black tarps lining the fences.
Oh, I remember.
So that you couldn't see.
Well, it was a very politically charged thing too, because what was happening around that time, and again, we're not a political podcast, but we can't ignore stuff.
Right.
Part of what was going on at that time was very, very political. Agree with it, don't agree with it, doesn't matter. The reality was this was happening around the country at different places, and the community would either go welcome to arm or be outraged.
Yeah.
So it helped. It again, all of a sudden can be murky the waters. And again, we mentioned it when we started. You have COVID, so now you have court systems that are not operating in the same manner. I'm assuming it was harder to get warrants. I don't know how that kind of stuff works, or at least get in the room with interview. That's the other question I wasn't thinking about. So during COVID, could you get face-to-face in interview rooms with people, or was it through wall? How did that happen? Or were you having to wear masks constantly? Or?
We could. It was just hard, especially when we were in New York, right? Because New York was...
So you may not speak the language. You're having a translator involved.
Yeah.
And you got, I'm assuming, either mask or through concrete walls or some sort of barrier that they put in the middle. That's crazy. I didn't even think about that part of it.
Yes.
The interviews were kind of long and cumbersome, I would imagine.
You don't think about that stuff, until you have a minor inconvenience affect your life. But yeah, there's plastic barriers that between the forensic interviewer and the kid, and it just, we're already having the language barrier.
Yeah.
So we would be like, you got to put the plastic wall. We have to hear what they're saying.
Mhm.
Take the mask off. We got to hear what they're saying.
Holy
First thing
mackerel.
you establish in an interview is rapport,
Yes.
and you can't
read
hear
your
each
face.
other very well.
No.
You can't see my entire face. I'm having to speak through a barrier. I may even have to be speaking through a third party back and forth and back and forth. I mean, that's a remarkable amount of hurdles to try to jump to get somebody to connect with you, to get them to tell you the thing that they don't want to tell you at all. And that's both victim and suspect. They don't want to tell
It's a
you.
big the game of telephone. By the time
Yeah,
it
100%.
gets
Yeah, it's the kindergarten
by the time
game.
it gets down to you, it's like, yes. No, they said 12 words. I
more
heard
than
12
yes.
words.
Yep.
What was after? What was all involved? There's maybe
Or they
little
won't tell you anything.
nuances.
No.
Well,
no,
that's
no.
why we had to travel so much too, because we would have one kid that would come in and say, well, I was told by this other kid he saw what happened. And we were like, okay. So then we had to go track down that kid and be like, were
Oh,
you the
wow.
one that actually saw the act happen inside the facility? And then obviously we'd have to interview that kid, and then that would happen. Oh, there's another kid that actually saw this happen. It wasn't actually me. So you guys are going to have to go talk to him.
Were there other adults that knew this was going on in the facility too and didn't say anything?
No, the only were the two that knew about each other and their
Okay.
relationship.
Well, somebody had to give a tip, right? And it was that. How did the tips come in? You said other people. Somebody said,
Yeah.
"Hey, we think this is happening," and you had mentioned that that's when a kid had told somebody.
There was a kid that told a counselor that he had seen a staff member kissing one of the
Okay,
minors there.
and that's at that point, that's counselors. That's a legal thing. I have to tell
Mandatory
somebody. That.
reporting.
Mandatory.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So did any of the investigation change any of the requirements, inspections, protocols, anything within unaccompanied minor facilities as a result of this?
Yes, I do. I know that at the time, I do not believe these facilities actually had to contact anyone in any sort of state political office to ask permission to come to the area and house these unaccompanied minors. Now, there was a bill, I believe, that
Yeah, I
was
remember
passed by Chuck Fleischman that said no, and you do have to ask basically permission to be here with these unaccompanied minors.
So
and
basically, the
notify us that you're coming.
So the change relative to establishment of the location, but whether any requirements or policies changed within the facilities themselves.
I don't know.
We don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's like 9 lanes out of
Yes.
yours. I get. I was
Yeah.
just curious.
if you could
I would
answer it
hope
with
so.
no
Yeah,
knowledge,
if you could
that'd
be
great.
100% accurate in what you tell us, that'd be great.
Then
Without any
you would
knowledge.
actually be a podcaster at that point. Say something that's wrong with a lot of confidence. That is
Yeah.
perfect. You could host a podcast.
Sound like I know what I'm talking
Well,
about.
so the one thing we alluded to earlier was how technology was, but specifically social media.
Mm.
On this particular thing, you've already mentioned and alluded to the text messages and all that. Was social media a big component of this, or yes or no, but it's a bigger part of your job in general? Because we're going to spend a little time the last few minutes talking about your job in general.
Social
So-
media is the reason that we got a successful conviction and sentencing, because that's where everything was caught, where she was the main suspect was telling them, you need to delete your messages, need to delete conversations, phone calls with these kids, like everything needs to be deleted.
She was sending that message to one of the other
Suspects.
perpetrators, or the
And victim.
and
Victim
victim.
and suspect, yep.
And so I'm assuming the other victims, the other perpetrators were sending that to their victims as well, like erase everything.
Yes.
So it was a chain of let's hide the ball on this as much as possible. People, we talked about this a bunch. Just because you don't see it on your phone doesn't mean it's gone.
It is not gone.
Does that change how you use social media? It should. If you're
Yes.
listening to everybody out there, it should change how you use social media. You mentioned a bunch of apps. Or anyone, does that change depending on the investigation? But you mentioned, was it Facebook was the big one, or was it more WhatsApp?
It was mostly on Facebook. There were WhatsApp conversations that the victims and witnesses were having in between themselves, like, hey, did you see that so and so got arrested from the facility? And oh yeah, I saw her kissing another boy. Like, so they were conversing with each other on WhatsApp.
Were there pleas deals in this, or was there actually court hearings and trials? Again,
There was some court, a lot of hearings, and there was one plea deal for a guilty plea in federal court.
But the rest were what? How did they get concluded? How did they get closed?
They were dismissed.
Okay. All right. So next question.
In state court.
In state court,
Okay.
yes.
Hold on a second. Let me get my little stupid brain. That Eastridge brain, a little mouse just fell off. It was doing so good, and it just went boop. Can we go to, I want to make sure we wrap anything up on this case specifically because you brought a lot of time and you spent a lot of time on it. I want to make sure that we cover anything you think is important for people to know, anything you learned from it. But I do want to spend the next 10 minutes or so, if you've got time and you got time, to talk about what you do in general. Yep. And then we're going to talk about how you kind of manage all this mentally with the etch and sketch of your brain. But anything on this case specifically that was people out here should know or be interested in?
I think on this case specifically, a lot of people right now in the media are kind of giving HSI a bad rap because they're a division of ICE, and right. So they've had to help with a lot of the Customs and Border Patrol situations. But HSI and the FBI are really at the forefront of child exploitation, and a lot of what HSI does is to combat child exploitation and child trafficking, and they're incredible at what they do with that. And they're incredibly supportive of their local partners who are combating child exploitation as well.
Yeah, isn't it weird in a sad world we live in? We can't talk about this with feeling like it's got to be political, because if there's anything that's not political, it should be, no matter how you're in the country, it doesn't give you legally, illegally, whatever it is, that should be out of bounds for all of us.
Yeah.
And we should be able to talk about that and say things without us going, now whose toes am I stepping on right now? So I'm glad you said that, because sometimes we don't understand that there's way more to these departments than what we just are thrown at us through the headlines.
A lot more.
They're doing stuff behind the scenes.
They're true.
And there's more now than
heroes.
Ever.
Yes.
If I want to, as you love a good movie reference.
Here we go.
At the camera.
Here we go.
Talking about HSI's responsibility, a lot of what you work in, special victims, and even vice investigations. When you talk about human trafficking, you said a minute ago, Clint, your brain flips to the kidnapping of the van, or you get snatched up in the restroom at the mall, which I'll go on the record. No one ever tried to kidnap anyone out of the bathroom at Hamilton Place. Doesn't happen. Those are all fake. Every single one of them. We looked into all of them when I was there.
I heard it through 3 people.
Then you should go punch all 3 of them in the head and tell them that's from me, because that's not accurate.
Okay.
But what we do get into is the misrepresentation sometimes of what human trafficking, which a lot of times is rolled up into prostitution.
It absolutely
it's where you see most of it occur. And a lot of people back in the day, it was considered a victimless crime. It wasn't anything. You've even had arguments that have come up over the years about the legalization of it. As long as it's regulated, taxed, HHS and health concerns and whatnot, it should all be fine.
Yes.
And to the movie reference I was talking about, Shannon gets a real big kick out of me, is every time the movie Pretty Woman comes on, I refuse to have it on, because people have seen that movie. You're laughing at this, but tell me if I'm off here. People watch that movie and think that any part of that movie is a representation of what that looks like. None of it is.
No.
And that's where we can get misaligned really quickly on, we see it here, we read about it, or we think this or whatever else.
Misconception on how I carry a gun around and clear a room is one thing. Misconceptions on that is a way different thing.
If you want to turn one of my triggers on, we'll roll around in it, because it really bothers me when people try to roll things into something that it doesn't even remotely look like. And if they ever had the opportunity to go talk to a victim of human trafficking that has worked in that world, lived in that world, and suffered in that world through no faults of their own, that's just the option they had, or they were forced into it, or whatever else, or you had the epigenetic transfer of trauma that we've talked about in ACEs and all these things that lead into people getting sucked into that and held into that. I'll challenge anybody to a debate anytime about what that truly looks like. So that's your movie reference for the episode, well done, Clint, is if anybody can watch Pretty Woman and truly think any episode of that, they should actually be disturbed by how it's portrayed in that movie. And if Richard Gere wants to come talk to me about it, I'm hard to find.
I think a lot of this comes to with maturity and being an adult too. You watch at it when you're 20s, it glamorizes everything. It also glamorizes Rambo. Rambo's not real either. You know what I'm saying? But as you get older and you start realizing, the world's full of bad shit behind the good curtain. That's not what I thought it was. It's what you call changing your mind and growing up.
That's what makes us better, is we don't hold on to those misconceptions and defend them as evidence presents itself that they were not accurate even at their beginning.
When you first got into this, and I know you're about to say something, but when you got into this, did you have this same, this is what it is versus this is what it really is?
No, well, I can say yes and no. I kind of knew what it was, but until I actually got the training and experience, got to see what it was. And like, for instance, what we were just talking, Sound of Freedom, I get asked about that movie all the time. And I love that movie for the fact that it is bringing spotlight attention to the fact that there is child exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not talked about enough, in my opinion. I love Tim Tebow because he's bringing great light to child exploitation existing and doing a lot to help law enforcement partners combat child exploitation. But the average child trafficking case that we see is involving a parent or a family member.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the snatched in a van, taken across to the cartel or someone else and sold. That's not really what we see in child trafficking. And so I'm glad that it brings up the conversation. It gives me the opportunity to actually explain to people what it really looks like.
Because usually it doesn't come up with ill intent. People just say something and you get a chance then
Mm-hmm.
to have a learning moment for the teaching moment for them and go, that's
Yes.
true. Now look at the more
Yes.
common scenario.
Now that stuff that's based on a real case.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
stuff does happen, but at least here in the United States, that is not typically what child trafficking is. Child trafficking is mostly done by a parent or a relative in the United States.
As you've, excuse me, as you've gone through this, as you've been part of this special victims unit, you learn, you grow, you get better at your job, you start building your own profiles. This particular case, did it help are you putting things in your memory bank of things to look for in the future? I'm assuming that you're learning to have your own profiles for things because it's like everything else. You actually have your own way of doing investigations. You may have some of the basics you all have in common, but he's going to do it a little differently than you are. He's going to approach it from a little different perspective than you do. How did this particular case help change how you approach investigations, or did it?
I think everybody in my unit has their own talents, and we have different spidey senses, I guess you could say. And I've definitely been gravitated more towards child exploitation cases. And even my teammates know this. They know they can come to me if they feel like they have some sort of child exploitation stuff going on, and vice versa. I have other teammates I go to because I'm not as strong with electronic stuff, and we bounce off of each other. We work great together. Our unit's a very strong unit in the teamwork aspect.
How many people are in that unit real quick, by the way?
Right now we have 7. One's getting promoted tomorrow. So
will we be surprised at how many cases come through? Would we be surprised?
Shocked.
Yeah.
There's been years we've had 700 to 800 cases with only 5 or 6 investigators working for the year.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. I interrupted you on building your profile. If you want to finish it up, great.
Oh, no,
If
you're
not,
good.
Well,
You're okay.
so let's do this. I want to spend the last few minutes because we are about to wrap it up. But the mental component of this, I've just learned that every time I ask this question, everybody that's responded, I find a few commonalities, but everybody approaches it from a different perspective. We talked about you and the spouse, and now you've got a little family. You go home to this beautiful kid. You go home to your husband.
Yep.
You got friends, and he doesn't like to talk about this. You referred to that at the very beginning.
Yeah.
How do you handle the etch and sketch of the brain of or do you?
We can't talk about like child cases. I work other cases like domestic violence and sexual assault cases with adults. The domestic violence cases, sometimes we can bounce off of each other. He's got more experience in law enforcement than I do, and as an investigator. So sometimes I'll, have him read a search warrant. Hey, do you think this sounds good? So that's nice. And we proofread for each other with certain things. Not everything, because there's cases he can't know about, cases I can't know about. But it is an interesting dynamic. Everybody's like, I would love to be a fly at your dinner table. And it's like, well, we try not to talk about work unless we have to. And we kind of have to find a healthy balance there. There's nights where we both come home and one of us will start talking a little bit about work, and the other one's like, hey, I don't want to talk about work anymore. Can we save that for tomorrow?
It's hard. I'm not hard.
We respect that.
And you don't take that personally.
No, not at all. We respect that of each other. And there's other days where you might not have had that much on your plate during that day. You go home and the other person wants to talk about it. You're okay. Your plate's not full for the day, and you have room for that. But proper nutrition and exercise is huge.
That's what I was going to ask.
For
How do you do,
maintaining, especially with what we do, maintaining good mental health, having a strong relationship with your spouse. I'm a person of faith. I think that's plays a huge part in getting through some of the stuff that I go through, and my husband as well.
And in life in general, I have found a child, which you have, is also a good way. You really can't, excuse me. I have found, and you may have found this too, Roddy, is that when you come home from a day with some kind of, it's just a bad day. We all have them. Your days may be worse than mine, but comparatively, relevant to me, it's the worst day I've had in a while, right? Whatever that looks like. If you got that little kid there, it's hard not to say, I've got to put a different hat on for a minute. Yes. I've got to compartmentalize. I've gone to the gym. I'm going to have my quiet time. But I have personally found that sometimes having to think about other people is a great way. Doesn't mean I don't revisit it later.
Yes.
But right now, I realize the world's way bigger than that world I've been trapped in for the last 8 to 10 hours.
Yes. I try to leave it at the door as best I can. There's absolutely days it bleeds over. She just turned 2 on Sunday, so she's hell on wheels toddler right now. There's days where she really tests my mama patience, especially after a long day. But luckily, I have my husband at home to, hey, I need 5 minutes. Will you please just take her and I'll come back?
Good thing is after 3, they are not a problem at all.
They get so much easier as they get older, and they're cheaper.
Well, I also have teen stepdaughters at home too that can sometimes help.
Damn the invention of Venmo, but continue on. You've got that to look forward to. Yeah. Hey, I love you. By the way, can I? No, jeez. No. So they are good. They can be very healthy distractions.
Oh, it's a great distraction. And she's so much fun and way too cute, and she knows it. So I welcome that distraction when I get home for sure.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up? Anything you want to add about what you do? Anything you want to say about the people you work with? Or are we good to wrap this up? Because I think it's been a good conversation. I think there's another one that you were on, another case.
Yes.
That maybe down the road we could talk about.
Yes, there was. I'm on a federal case where the suspect got sentenced to 40 years in federal prison, but his state charges are still pending here in Hamilton County courts. And so once that wraps up, I will be able to come on and talk about it.
Is there a timeline on that one at all? Or is it just
hopefully within the next year?
It just gives us something to look forward to.
We're possibly going to trial, so hopefully within the next year.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
No, we appreciate it. Thanks for what you do. We appreciate it. Thank you for the apples.
You're welcome.
I have one now because that's going to be my lunch.
Healthy.
Be the healthiest lunch I've had all week. Jennifer thanks you for letting me have an apple out there.
Absolutely.
See you, Roddy.
See you, brother.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We're out.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Finish my apple.
Thank you.